Hi, everyone. Welcome to From the Grown Up podcast. I am here with my friend April and Carlo. They are my friends from church. And when I started thinking of people that could come on and share their stories, I thought of, oh, April and Carlo have a great story that they could share. And because I heard little bits here and there, but I would like to know and learn and get encouraged by you guys. And I'm sure that other people will get encouraged too. So,
Right. First of all, thank you for having us on your podcast. We really appreciate it. Would love the opportunity to share our story, which most people actually don't know. So most people don't know our story in full. They've had maybe a story from someone else and or they've heard of it, but not really from directly from us. So it's great that we get to do this tonight.
From that little clip at church.
Yeah. The short clip.
yeah, that's when I saw first.
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
I think that was last year,
Yeah.
2020. No, yeah, it was a couple of weeks before Easter. I think they were leading up to the Easter celebration.
Oh, okay. Nice.
So Carlo and I have been married for 16 years. We got married very young. We got married when we were 21, 22, right?
Like
Right?
maybe
Yeah.
22, 23.
Okay. And, so we have two girls. We have Alexis, who's 15, and Kara, who is 9 years old. And so in 2018, we had lunch one day. And during lunch, Carlo said his stomach was hurting.
It was at Shake Shack. Coming from Shake Shack and going home, I felt sharp pain in my abdomen.
Wow.
So then I've had history of acid reflux, so I thought it was just an episode of acid reflux, but I couldn't bear the pain. So I decided to go to the emergency room, and that's when they did blood work, they did imaging, and that's when they found the mass.
Yeah, I remember. So, because he's had acid reflux in the past, he's gone to the ER. And when he went to the ER, they said, okay, just take some antacids and you're fine. And so that night, I wasn't so worried. He was in the ER. I was home with the girls. I said, let me know how it goes. That night, I had the text. So he said they did the CAT scan and they found a 12 centimeter mass. A 12 centimeter mass is pretty big. And
Bigger
so,
than a baseball, right?
yeah.
Somewhere around there.
And then so I just remembered getting that text message and my heart dropped because I knew what that meant. But of course, I was very hopeful and I said, okay, maybe it's just a benign mass, right? Like we don't know if it's malignant. Malignant means cancerous. So I thought, okay, that's fine. My heart sunk. But at the same time, as I was hopeful that it was nothing. So then I drove to the ER. And then I got there, and I could see Carlo. He was curled up like a ball on the stretcher, and he looked like he was in so much pain. He was sweating, and then so I look over to him, and he looks up at me, and he said, I have cancer. And I said, you don't. I said, we're going to pray. I said, we're going to pray. My mom was there. She was praying. So the ER doctor came in and she said, she's like, okay, so she's reviewing the results. And she said, he has a 12 centimeter mass in the abdomen. And I said, but that's just, we don't know yet, right? I said, that could be benign, right? She looks at me with the coldest face, straightest face, and she goes, no, it's malignant. And I said, all hope left my heart because like the way she said it was just so definitive. And she's like, this is a cancerous mass. I didn't want to accept it. I said, this can't be right. Like he was fine. So then, so my mom was praying with us and she's like, no, he doesn't have cancer. And that's how my mom is. She just will not accept bad news. She is just, nope, we're going to pray. And it's not going to happen. Of course, I was sobbing. He was in so much pain, right?
I was in pain, but I was just trying to process everything. Like I didn't know how to tell my parents, my siblings. Actually, I made the first phone call I made wasn't it was my mom, but she didn't pick up, or she might have. I don't know if she picked up or not. But the first person that I was able to tell through the phone was, I think, my sister. And then she thought I was kidding and she just started crying. And then I had to hang up because once I hear somebody
Yeah.
cry, I end up crying as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, and so when we heard the news, I had to go back home because what they said was we went to Greenwich Hospital and he needed to be transferred to Yale, but I didn't have anything with me, so I couldn't go with him without my stuff. So then I drove home, and my drive home felt like it was a scene from a movie. Like I was crying, screaming. I will never forget that ride home because it was nighttime and I was the only one on the road, and I couldn't even see the road while I was driving because I was crying so hard. The first thing I asked the Lord was why? Why? Like why Carlo? And I just felt so helpless in those moments because if I could take it away from him, I would have. But this was that one thing I couldn't do. And I just felt like what's going to happen to us, what's going to happen to the kids, what's going to happen to him. Sure, like I wanted to make sure he was okay, but I couldn't guarantee it. And so we came back, and then they had to send us. They had to send him to Yale New Haven Hospital, and so we were in the ambulance. I was sitting in the front with the driver, and he was sitting in the back. And I
It was the
still
most uncomfortable ride ever because I was strapped in the stretcher. I couldn't really move.
So all of that
And I
happened
was
within the day, one day.
yeah.
yes, that same night. So that car ride felt so long because first of all, he was away from me, and I couldn't even check on him just to make sure he was okay. And then it was just like our whole world kind of came crumbling down because we still had work. I had work, the kids were home, had school, and everything just had to be put on pause. And so we got to Yale, and I remembered feeling like, oh man, like this is such a strange place. Like, did you feel that?
I did. It actually, I felt like it was just like a scene from a movie that we've watched before. I couldn't believe that it's happening to us.
Yeah, it was very surreal.
Yeah, it was very surreal.
In the most awful way. And then so yeah, we were there, and then so many people have reached out. Family members offered help, and his whole family ended up flying here
Yep.
from
So
all over.
at that time, my parents were living in California. My brother was in California. Both my brothers were in California, so they flew up here, whatever it is.
Verbally,
But
okay.
they flew up from where they were to be with us to help us out with our whatever while we were in the hospital. They helped with the kids, brought them to school and back. Just overall
And I
care.
think there was at one point there were like 25 people in my house, and then they're like, "Where's the patient?" Even
I wasn't there.
Yeah,
Hospital.
yeah.
Wow,
So
everybody just wanted to come and
yes,
support you.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we definitely felt the love from everyone. And so the two doctors I worked with, they found a way for us to come back because they said, Yale is too far from your home. You need to be closer to home so that way you don't have to be so far away from your kids. So they made phone calls, and they directed us to a hematologist in Stanford. Oh, the other thing is when we got to Yale, let's go back. So when we got to Yale, they ran some tests to find out what kind of mass and what kind of cancer it was, and then so they found out that it's diffuse large B cell lymphoma, which had two separate cancer cells growing. So one cancer cell would grow and then the other one would grow. So they gave him chemotherapy and it did not work. He was fine during
And at that point, when I was during the diagnosis, they said that the cancer that I had was already stage 4. So when we heard stage 4, I was like, nobody has ever been healed from a stage 4 cancer. But from what they told us, that when you have lymphoma and it's stage 4, it's not necessarily uncurable, but it depends on the size.
it has to do with where it's spread. So it's because lymphoma is cancer in the lymph nodes. So his B cells were the ones that making the cancer cells. So it's all over the body, but they staged it as stage 4 because it was growing in the abdomen. And was it in the chest area?
No, no. It was between the small intestine and the colon, and it found a little opening where it just grew like in a strangest spot. That's why it wasn't seen during the first imaging that I had.
Yes. So a young doctor there came into that room at Yale, and he said there is a new clinical trial treatment that just came out a year ago. And he said it's very new, so it's not well tested yet. But it could be his chance of being cured because the chemotherapy, he handled chemotherapy very well, but it also didn't work. So he had a few.
It worked during while I was doing chemo, but then after the 6 cycles that I had, it started growing, and when it was growing rapidly.
And it was growing so fast because there were two separate cancer cells growing at the same time. So chemo wasn't enough to get rid of the cancer. And so from there, we said, okay, we're going to go back. He was transferred to Stanford Hospital.
Stanford Hospital.
And the hematologist there was great. He did 6 weeks of chemo there.
6 rounds.
Yeah, 6 weeks, right? Or
Yeah.
6 rounds.
6 rounds.
What? Okay.
Yeah.
How long is that?
It was every 3 weeks.
So he did 6 rounds, and I remembered having a separate meeting with the hematologist after he's had basically 2 separate rounds of chemo. So he did 1 set of chemo at Yale, and then got transferred to Stanford Hospital, and then did the 6 rounds. At the end of that, the hematologist there said, let's go over his advanced directives and end of life care because he's not responding to chemo. And the clinical trial was so new, nobody knew whether it would work or not. So she said, we have to prepare for the worst. And she said that the prognosis didn't really look so great because of the lack of response. And so I remembered going home that day, and I was again sobbing because that was such a hard news to hear because we have children.
So young too.
Yeah,
very
we were very young.
30.
I was 32.
32.
Wow.
I was 31. Yeah. So I just couldn't believe that this was happening. And I drove home, and then he was on the couch with talking to my mom. And I remembered hugging him so tight because like the thought of losing my husband, the father of my kids, possibly, and we don't know when, I couldn't believe that was something I had to think about and even prepare for, right? So I got home, he looked at me and while I was hugging him, and he said, "We're going to be okay."
Yeah.
And I looked at him and I was like,
why are you crying? Like, everything's going to be okay.
because he didn't know.
But I
He
had
didn't
no
know.
idea that she had that conversation with the doctor
Yeah.
already. So.
And then so from there, families came over, everybody was helpful. And I still remembered saving my tears for the nighttime because during the day, we was all about which doctor you were going to see next, what test you were going to do next.
Yeah.
Kids had to go to school in the morning. So I dropped them off. I went to work because somebody needed to keep the house running, and I had to keep working. I remembered saving the tears for the nighttime when nobody was looking, and then the next morning had to just brush it off and then start the day again like nothing's happening. Phone calls throughout the day. I mean, we were FaceTiming, like we were on the phone with the doctors, just coordinating care the whole time.
Right. Our lives were pretty much just go to the hospital, come back, talk to doctors, see what we can do, or plan things out, what the next step of care will be.
Yeah. And so after that, they finally had an opening for, like, a doctor was able to take him in at Sloan. And so he got approved for the clinical trial. It's usually chemotherapy and then stem cell treatment and then what's called CAR T cell treatment. Chemotherapy wasn't working for him.
What was the first line?
First line of treatment. The second line of treatment was the stem cell transplant, which meant that they had to wipe his whole immune system out and then replace them with new rights. That would have been not a great idea. That wouldn't have been an ideal situation for him because, I mean, he would have been so immunocompromised, and so
I would not have any immunity at all.
like starting like a baby.
Yeah, it's just like being a baby. I would get booster shots and a whole new set of immunizations. I don't know how I'll react to them. Yeah, so.
Yeah, and so thankfully, the mass was growing so much, so quickly after he stopped the chemo that it was growing at a weekly rate. And so it grew to a softball sized mass. So it's like this big. So a softball sized mass that they had to operate and remove through his abdomen because it was just compressing on his organs. And so they needed to really take it out. But because of that surgery, they were able to prove that he needed to skip the stem cell transplant
And go
treatment.
into the third line of treatment.
Yes, which is the CAR T cell treatment, immunotherapy. So, what CAR T cell does is it takes his T cells and then brings it to the lab and uses those T cells to fight off the B cells that make cancer cells. So, it's almost like using his own immune system, adding receptors to it, and then using that to attack the cancer cells in his body, which was very new. So, it came out a year before. And I just remember thinking, they said, are you willing to accept the risk or of this new treatment? You don't know what the side effects will be. And at that point, we were like,
I was like, go for it. We have nothing to, literally, we have nothing to lose.
and so, yes, we're like, yes, said he'll be under, they'll monitor him for 15 years and
I
check.
still am being monitored. Like every now and then, I would get a phone call from Sloan, just checking up on me and asking what's changed, if anything, if I'm feeling anything any different from like before.
Yeah, and so I remembered like just thinking that, God's timing is so great because if he had gotten that diagnosis a couple of years prior, I don't know what that would have looked like. And there wouldn't have been a
Treatment.
treatment
It wouldn't-
available.
at that time, it wasn't. It was so new. It wasn't available.
So he did the treatment and then
And then, so I did a treatment. I stayed in hospital for 7 days to be monitored when they finally infused the cells back in me. So they had to monitor me for 7 days. Everything was well. So I was discharged but I had to live in the city for a month just so I can be closely monitored. So Sloan Kettering had their own apartment buildings for patients, stem cell patients, bone marrow transplant patients. So that's where I lived for a month, and it was just an experience. It was hard living away from my family, especially with the girls.
yeah, we just FaceTimed him for a whole month and
So how long was the whole process since you got the diagnosis?
From 2018, I was close to a year.
Wow.
Because I was diagnosed in, I believe, May. My PET scan when our doctors announced that I was cancer free was also May. So it was a year apart.
yeah, so after a year of transferring from one hospital to another, they had multiple PET scans to show the cancer whether it was growing or not. Praise God, the CAR T cell immunotherapy worked, and so he got his PET scan in May of 2019. Right?
2019, they said cancer cells were so small that it was not detectable
Wow.
from a PET scan.
Yeah, all because of the CAR T cell
Yeah.
immunotherapy. And so, this whole situation, I basically had three takeaways from this whole experience. The first thing was that we've always felt God's presence in any situation, whether it was transferring from one hospital to another. Whether for me it was waking up in the morning and pretending like things are okay, and well, not pretending, but claiming that things were okay, and continuing the day to day for the children, for everybody. So I felt like his presence was there with us the whole time. It was definitely Jesus was in our boat because we were in the middle of the storm and he was in our boat and we had this peace in our hearts, knowing that he was in control. It was chaotic. Everything was so busy and there was so much going on, but his presence really like grounded us and kept us going. We could feel his love through the people that he sent to us and through just the peace that he gave us and the comfort that he gave us during this time. Would
Yeah.
you say?
I agree.
Like when you were in New York?
Yeah, when I was in New York, his presence was always there with us because even our children, our girls knew that I was sick, but the teachers were surprised because they weren't really affected. The grades weren't coming down. They were just going by their day and they weren't really affected.
It was the strength of God, I think.
Yeah.
You said
Amen.
pretending it's not that word. I think it was you were not believing the
Yeah.
you didn't want to believe what the diagnosis was, but you decided to believe God has this, right?
Right,
Yes.
right.
And
Yeah. I mean, I cried a ton.
of
Like,
course.
don't get me wrong.
Oh yes. No, no,
I cried
believe you.
a whole lot.
Yeah.
But I definitely felt God's presence, and that was really my first takeaway. And my second takeaway was, when the world gives us no hope. So I spoke with the doctor, and prognosis is not great. Let's plan for the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
And then that other doctor who looked me straight in the face and said, "Oh, it's malignant."
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
it was
no
I can
nothing.
never forget that. Well, I think your mom too. Your mom,
Yeah, like our jaws just.
she's we cannot
Yeah.
forget that doctor.
Doctor.
Yeah.
Because they see this all the time,
Oh,
right?
it's
that,
just
and
like-
that's the
it's
thing,
just like a
right?
normal
Yeah,
day
like
for
a
them.
normal day.
Yeah.
Well, it's like you have a fever, you have cancer, and it's like, oh, okay, well, that's life changing. But throughout those situations, I learned that the world doesn't ever give us hope, but Jesus does. And so I didn't have to listen to the world. And thank God we have Jesus who gives us like real hope that we can cling on to, that he is in our boat. He's always with us in anything that we do, in any circumstances. My third takeaway was that, what was my third takeaway?
God's timing.
Yes,
God's timing.
timing.
God's timing.
God's timing is perfect. It really is so perfect. When I look at the whole, because I like to reflect on, it's crazy because we've gone through some really tough situations in our lifetime. But what I like to do is at the end of it, I look at the whole situation and I look at from the start to finish and what it looks like. And God's timing is impeccable because if this had happened 2 to 3 years prior, it would have been that he would have had no chance. And we would have had to really prepare for the worst because of how fast the cancer cells were growing. And if this happened, so it was 2018 and he was healed in 2019. If this happened a year after, it was the pandemic.
Oh wow.
Right.
Yes.
So I would not know how to be a cancer patient during the pandemic because with chemotherapy, you're already immunocompromised and having to travel back and forth from the hospital to your home in the middle of the pandemic
Yeah.
I guess I just wouldn't be able to handle it mentally because everyone's already in isolation. As a cancer patient, you would have to isolate even more because you don't want to get COVID. So yeah, I think God's timing is very,
Yeah.
it's,
Plus, that's
it really is perfect timing.
If you don't get it sometimes at the moment when it's happening, you don't
See
you
it
don't
like
see it,
that.
you don't understand
Yeah.
what's going on, right? But then when you look back, you kind of I'm glad it happened that sequence, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because during the pandemic, people besides what you were going through, then you could add up the emotional pain of not seeing your family,
Right.
and then the worry that other people could get sick.
Yes.
That would have been even worse.
Yes. And if during chemotherapy, if he had gotten sick, it would have been so much
It would have
worse
been
for him.
so deadly, I think.
Yeah, because it was
Like you're already cancer. Like imagine being a cancer patient and getting COVID on top of that. It's like a double whammy.
And so what's funny is that, when he was healed from cancer, he was still immunocompromised because of the treatment. Slightly. It wasn't terrible like how a stem cell transplant would.
Yeah, I would
But-
have some immunity. I'm still immunocompromised.
Yeah, we still needed to protect you
Right,
from,
right.
but what's funny is when in 2019, I was the one wiping everything down. I needed to make sure that don't touch this, wear your mask, make sure you don't. And then, sure enough, like not even a year later, everybody else was doing it. And then by the pandemic, I was like, I'm good
You're
because
good.
everybody
Yeah,
else
so,
is wiping their stuff down.
Between my being cancer free up to the pandemic, like when the pandemic hit, everybody was sanitizing stuff.
Yeah, I was such a militant in 2019.
So then we've already gotten used to that lifestyle where it's just normal for us.
And I remembered we would go to hotels and I would wipe everything down because I said, no, like he can't get sick. He needs to be okay. And then the pandemic comes. I'm like, actually, I'm pretty sure everybody else wiped this down like 5 times.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It was actually
Yeah, that was our norm back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we just got used to that life. But yeah, I don't think he would have been able to handle isolation.
Yeah, because my dad was there. Like I was only allowed to have one person with me where I stayed. But if that happened during the pandemic, I don't know if he'll be able to be with me at that time.
You would have been, yeah.
I would have been isolated, like really isolated, and I would
Yeah.
just
It would have
probably
been
just
harder.
go crazy.
Yeah, because also our emotions, they play a part in our health.
Yes,
Right?
yes, very,
Definitely.
very
So
much.
God knew what you could handle.
He's like, I can handle cancer, but don't let me sit in a room alone.
Alone.
Don't keep
Yeah.
me in a room. That's his thing. He cannot
I
stay.
can, silence is like.
Yeah. He needs people. He needs people.
I mean,
Crazy
I'm not an extrovert, but I'm not an introvert as well.
But you need
I mean, but I need social interaction.
Yeah, we
From
all
time
do.
to
Yeah,
time.
from time to time. But you've been together since you were younger.
Oh yeah, so we've been
So-
together since we were
Junior year of high school.
yeah.
It's so sweet. I love the stories.
You still like me?
Of course.
You gotta tell her that every day.
Remind me. But yes, so speaking of isolation, before he got sick, we would be isolated because we weren't really with people. And
There was a season of our lives where, so we've been going to Harvest Time Church for a long time, but we were just goers. So we would go in on Sunday and then leave right after.
Yeah.
So sometimes we wouldn't even finish the service, and we were the
Bounce.
runners. We were as Pastor Glenn would say, we were the runners.
But it's done. Back.
we were
Yeah.
the eight. What was it? 8:30.
It was at
8:30 a.m.
I don't know if you remember
you
that
here?
time. We used to have three.
Great. I started going when right before you changed.
Okay, so we used to have 4 services at Harvest Time, right? We had Saturday night service.
I gotta look, tell them there.
Yeah, Saturday night, 8:30.
Yes, it was like 8, 9, and then 11:30.
Yeah, so there was
9:30,
4 services at that
and then,
time.
yeah, Saturday nights.
Yeah.
But we were the 8 a.m. early
We were
Early
early.
risers.
early birds, like
Well, we only had
First
one
in
kid
and
back
first
then,
out.
so it was easy.
yeah.
So we were the first in, first out.
Yes. And so the beautiful thing that came out of this situation was that we realized, right, how much we really value community.
It did bring us out of our shell, like the community that we had. And yeah, it's just the support system
Yeah.
and being able to share our story, and then, give our friends would like give us advice, and it's just family.
Yeah.
I'd say.
Support.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
support.
support.
Yeah. And after that, when you go through something big like this and God really shows himself and shows you who he is, his heart, and his desire for you to, his plans for you to have a great future and to have hope. And so we realized how important it is for us to give him back all the glory, right? So now, after this situation, we ended up getting plugged into our own ministries. And it's just amazing what God is doing, because we're coming from a place where when we worship him, we worship knowing who he has been to us in those dark, really, really dark times, right? And those moments are powerful when you know that who God is. It's deeper. Your worship for him is much deeper when you've been through the hardest times.
Yeah. And one verse that I really held on throughout all of this is 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 7, and it says, "Cast all your cares on the Lord, for he cares for you." And that's what I really held on to, because I didn't know if, like, I was very anxious, but I didn't really show it. Like, I just gave everything to him and let him do the rest. And from looking back now, everything was just aligned.
And then for me, the verse that I held on to was James chapter 1, verse 2. "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." And so this is a beautiful take on, looking at the trials and seeing something completely different from what the world sees. That our trials produces perseverance, and it's really helped us, right? And there are times when we would go through something difficult, but is it as difficult as fighting cancer?
No.
And so
Right? You can see life from a different perspective.
exactly,
Right.
the gauge is a
Like,
little different.
If you've been through like a life altering event, like everything else is small, like it doesn't phase me. Oh, like something minor happened, just let it go. Like there's something bigger
Yeah.
because you
That
grew during that phase. So
right,
you're on the
right. From
next.
that time, I learned how to fight, how to get away from a situation, or how to solve a situation. So then, like everything else feels like very minor, and it doesn't phase me as much.
That's very
Our
true.
friends be like, "Oh, what's Carlo doing? Oh, he's YOLOing."
Oh, he's all about making up for lost times. So all of our friends know this. What's Carlo doing? He's coming out of the four walls of the room. He's out there trying to find something new to do. He's just living the life.
That's great because that's when you appreciate life,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Right, right, right. No, you're right. That's you appreciate life because I almost lost,
Yeah, you almost
but I
lost
didn't.
it.
We held in. We held on to it. We pressed in, and here we are.
Yeah, God is really good.
Really
Like he's
good.
really shown himself through our situation. Like the miracles that the right people he placed at the right time. It's just there's no one who could have planned all of that
In
other
His
than
perfect timing.
God. Yes, his perfect timing. Just everything has been. So for us to be able to say that though, it's also through God's grace, right? Like
Yeah.
for us to be able to.
Sit here and share our story.
Share, yeah.
Yeah,
here.
he's
It's like
here.
Jesus and
Jesus
Carlo.
and Carlo are here.
I'm a walking testimony of God's grace and His miracles. He's a miracle working God.
When I see you guys at church, that's what I thought, yeah, that is encouraging. For me, I've never gone through that, through that situation like a close family member. But seeing you guys from afar and hearing little bits of your testimony, it is, it makes me think they've gone through something hard that I'm sure I myself get encouraged by it and think,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to listen to this because it helps me with my faith and
Yes.
timing, like
It
you
helps,
said,
it
right?
helps everyone grow
Yeah,
and
it
be
helps.
closer to Him.
Yeah.
Like I said, you wouldn't know His grace if you haven't experienced what we experience, or what I experienced.
Yeah, and we hope that people who listen to this or watch this that they would be encouraged also because in those times I was looking for another person's story that I can, be encouraged by. So I'm hoping this, reaches someone out there who needs just a little bit of encouragement and little, encouragement that will get them through their difficult times.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound redundant, but it's really God's timing. If you're waiting for your time, just keep praying, hang in there, and in God's perfect timing, you'll get there.
Yeah.
So
Amen.
good. I need that. I need that.
Yes, perfect
My
timing.
timing.
Claim it. We
My
claim
timing.
it. Let's claim it.
Yes. Perfect timing.
Perfect
Not
timing.
just
Not-
timing,
yeah, perfect
perfect timing. And then you'll look back and say, that's why. I understand it now. Why it happened. It had to happen at this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's such a good reminder.
Yeah.
So faith and trust, and I think what I'm, going back to your story when you say your mom didn't agree with that.
Oh yeah,
and
she
no
was.
one
She's
sees.
like, whenever you give her bad news, she'll say, "No, that's not happening. No, no, no.
We don't accept
Cancer?
it. We
No,
don't
no, no.
accept it.
No, I don't believe it."
I have
She'll
a
say, "I
friend
don't
that's
believe
like that.
it."
Yeah.
So,
Thank
but
God
it's so
for
true.
moms who have strong faith.
Strong faith warriors
Yes.
that prayed for us.
Yeah, and I did grow up in a family with my mom has a strong faith. Yeah, like really strong. My grandma was also the same, and they're both prayer warriors, and so they've really shown me what life could look like.
And you need those people at that moment too,
Yes.
right?
Right.
Yes.
You need those
Because
people every day.
every day.
Every
Yes,
day.
every day.
My mom's faith is so strong that sometimes I'm like, my faith may
Not
not.
there.
Like,
Yeah.
I need to strengthen my faith because
Yeah.
the way she responds to things is just.
She's just very optimistic. But, in our own
just-
flesh, sometimes we can't help but feel defeated. But thank the Lord for like your people like your mom that
Yeah.
are very, loving and praying every single day for everyone. And, thank you for answered prayers.
Yeah, God is
Yeah.
good.
For me, sometimes, whatever's happening, okay, that's God's will then. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna force it. I'm just not gonna force it. But other friends that I have, I gotta pray about it. Don't believe that. It's so
Right.
good to have those people that remind you and
Yeah.
say, no, we're not going to agree with that. You
Yeah.
gotta keep praying until it happens.
Right.
We cast out all.
Cast that off.
And God knows the desires of our hearts, right? So what we can do is we present our desires to Him according to his will in our lives, he has
Yeah.
the ability to make it happen. And so, but I understand what you're saying. Sometimes we're like, okay, God, whatever you want. Because I'm the same way too. I say, whatever the Lord wants, only because I've lived a life where he's shown me that his plans are way better than my plans. Like, we could go on for hours, but he's really shown me that what I think I know isn't as good as what he knows. But in this situation, this taught me that if you get a diagnosis, if you get bad news, you don't have to accept it. And you can pray into it and pray against it, like cancer, pray against sickness and diseases. And he's given us the power and authority to do that.
Yeah. And what I think too, it's God is going to use whatever he has to use for his will.
Yes.
It was his will for it. It was the will of God for Carlo to overcome that cancer, right?
Yes.
But it didn't come maybe in a miraculous way, maybe that we see on TV or
Like the immediate healing in the moment. Yes.
right? It came through a different avenue.
Yeah,
Yes.
God brought us to the right people and pointed us at the right direction.
The right time.
Yeah, so he used those people for me to do whatever they needed to do to heal me.
And someone actually prophesied over him when Pastor Glenn prayed for him. There was somebody else also that was there, and she said that she saw him walking his daughter down the aisle at harvest time. And so that was also such an encouraging word at the time.
And I really held on to that.
Yeah.
I held on to it.
She's only 15, so not anytime soon. But
Not looking.
she's not looking right now.
Not right now. Not right now.
Not right now, boys.
No. Yeah, so that is important because, as believers, right, we think God is going to work one way. Sometimes we can have God in a box and say, no, he's going to do it this way. But God has other plans of doing it a different way, right?
Right.
God is very creative, so we don't need to box him in. He can do all sorts of things in ways that we probably can't even imagine.
Yeah.
So he's very creative.
So that's why you're in the creative team.
Creative team.
Shout out.
That was interesting.
Yes.
But yeah, he's creative. So yeah, I'm very happy that was what God did in your lives, right?
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's encouraging for young people too. And also, you were super young to get cancer.
We were very. He was very young.
We had no family history of cancer. So it just took us by surprise. Yeah. So watch this podcast.
Yeah, what's his story?
Send it to a
Podcast,
friend who needs
video.
an encouragement. Yeah, really. I mean, we can talk about this all night. Like God, the way he moves, the way he touches people, the way he speaks to people and uses them to bless you, it's just so amazing. And I mean, there are things that only God can do. Like, for example, when I ask for a nice weather,
Nice weather?
he's
All right.
the only one who can do it.
He gave you a nice weather?
He does.
Okay, I'm going
When
to
we
call
ask-
April.
No,
It's
so I
ready,
tell this
April,
to
go
people
and-
all the
So
time.
we've gone on multiple trips. So that a couple weeks before we go on our trip, we would check the weather forecast and it would say rain that whole week we're there. But then when we get there and April started praying about the weather, it's sunshine all throughout.
And then there were times when, as we were going home, that's when it rains. So listen, I'm just saying, all I did was I prayed, and then there was sunshine. Only God can do that.
Only
So,
God can do that.
yeah.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Only
he does
God can
listen.
do that.
He's done that for me a few times.
Or parking space. Have you ever
that
prayed
is
for
a
parking
popular
space?
one. Yeah.
It's a very
Yeah,
popular
that
I'm
is-
telling you,
Like-
he gives me parking space right in front of it.
Jesus,
the
I need
place.
a spot right now, please. And there.
Yes.
Oh, there's one.
Yes,
Yay.
very true. You guys should try it.
Yeah, thank you,
Everyone
Lord.
should try it.
Not just any parking spot. It's right in front of the store you're going to.
Because he wants to make sure you understand that it's from him.
That's so funny.
So
Amen.
if you have a need, pray.
Yeah, no.
He
that's
knows
so
your
funny.
heart's desires. He can hear you. He knows you. He knows you better than anybody.
Yes, he does. He's
Yeah.
good. Oh.
He's so good.
Yeah, thank you guys for sharing.
Thanks for
Pretty
having
quick.
us.
No,
Thanks for having
of
us.
course,
This is
you
great.
know, I'm just getting there, and it's fun. It's
Yes.
really super fun.
Subscribe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
guys, listen
subscribe
to
to
the
the
other
channel.
podcasts on the From the Ground Up channel. Scroll down.
Is it on
Like
YouTube?
Yeah,
and
I'm gonna
subscribe
put it.
and share to your friends.
Share.
Comment.
And if you need prayer for a nice weather, make sure you pray to Jesus. If he doesn't listen to
Yes.
you, then you ask April to pray for you.
Sometimes you have to outsource.
Or if you listen to April, he listens to you.
But it's true. He
It's true.
does.
Yeah, yeah. And a parking spot too.
And a parking spot.
Yeah.
Just try it. Just try it.
Just try.
Try.
Yeah, no, I'm so happy, you guys.
Test them and you shall see.
See?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's so encouraging, and I'm glad that God did that in your life, right?
Oh,
in your
yeah.
lives.
Yes.
And when your kids grow older, they're going to also know this story.
And I actually don't think the kids realize the
Severity.
severity of the
Yeah.
situation.
How old are they?
Alexis is 15 and Kara is 9. Kara was around 3 and then Lexi was 9 when she was Kara's age now. They don't really realize how terrible the situation was.
They just knew that I was just really sick and I didn't have hair.
Yeah, he didn't have eyebrows and he didn't have hair at all. Like he was just like so shiny and so beautiful,
Like a baby.
like a baby.
Aw.
Yeah, like a baby.
Yeah.
But
I mean, they saw my physical appearance, but that didn't, their love for me did change.
But yeah, we're hoping that one day, when they listen to this
this.
podcast, they'll know that, their dad has been through like some difficult times, but God has been with us the whole time. So I hope that this also encourages them when they're older and, they can learn from it.
Yeah,
So,
I'm
but-
sure they will.
And when we tell you we've got some other stories that would just, wow.
That's for another episode.
That's for another
That's
episode.
for another episode.
This was, what do you want to call this?
Oh man.
What are we going to call this?
We're gonna have to think about that. Oh, be on the spot. I can't remember. Sure. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's for another episode.
That's for another episode.
Tune in.
Tune in. Yeah, now I'm going to got to think of another.
Oh man, really? We've got stories to tell.
Okay.
And this is probably the most you'll ever hear me speak because I don't really talk that much
She does.
in public.
Public, yeah.
In public.
Me too. I don't like talking in public.
They're so sweet.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for
thank
having
you for
us.
sharing.
We're glad that we're able to share our story with you and your audience.
Thank you guys for watching and listening to this. I hope it blesses you and that you can share with other people. And I am blessed, and I'm going to go home and remember this.
Yes. Share,
Yeah.
like, and subscribe.
Bye.